Okay, so I finished my sketch. I can always reference the JPEG of it. I can always reference what I put into Canvas to get all my notes, of what references go where. But now I've gotten it into Photoshop and I want to use the guides to measure where the edges are. So how do you use the guides? You use the move tool at the very top of the toolbar. You click on the ruler and you drag down. So I want everyone to make guides around their preferred sketch. Okay, now notice, because I sketch quickly, I didn't draw a really clean horizontal and vertical box. But this is the beauty of Photoshop, right? If I hit Command J and duplicate it so it's no longer the background layer, then I can hit Command T to transform it, just like we've done with compositing in the past. And right-click and distort instead of warp is a really good tool for just straightening out this box. So for pulling out the edges there, pulling down the edges here. But this is still a creative enterprise. And I think, okay, is that what I want? Or do I want to, I can hit return, or do I want to hit Command T and make it a little bit narrower? Like by maybe holding Shift and Option and squeezing it down. So I think that's what I want. Does that make sense? So let's look at the difference between this, which has, I'm going to use guides again to show a new top and bottom, and this. You see how that's just cleaning up my original intention and making it horizontal and vertical. Okay, once I've done that, I'm going to use the crop tool. I'm going to crop to those new guides. It will stick to them. Hit return. And now I have a new image size. And this image size is based on my preferred sketch. So I need it to be at least 8 by 10 by at least 300 pixels per inch. So we can print it for our midterm, right? But there's nothing that says I can't make it bigger than that. And I got really high quality references all from Pixabay. So I'm going to go to my preferred size, which is around 11 by 14. Because if you do 11 by 14 and you do it by 350 pixels per inch, then you can even print that up to 16 by 20 and still have it be good quality, which is about as large as we can print in the class. So if you have the resolution and you're using Photoshop, I say go for it. And I'm going to do that by making the width 14 inches. Now, what's crazy about that is I was thinking 11 by 14 was really big, but remember it has to be at least 8 by 10. So when I do 14, it changes because mine's so long, the height's still only 7. So I need the height to be at least 8. So I'm going to make the height 8, right? And that makes it by 14.3. And then the resolution, it needs to be at least 300, but I'm going to make it 350. Okay? To be able to change that and change the pixels, where it was only 6 megabytes, now it's going to be 40 megabytes. You want to make sure you have resample on and that you have that padlock between the width and the height so it doesn't distort. And then I say, okay. Now my sketch, which just got blurred a little bit, it had to invent some pixels, which is to be expected. But this is my planning sketch now. And those guides show me where my end composition will be. And I'll get rid of these other guides. Just like you can create them, you can drag them back. And if you want to turn them on and off, you just use Command semicolon. And it's under View Guides if you want to see the shortcuts for them. Okay. But now I've basically got my blueprint, but I need to tear out all my magazine pages and then cut them out and put them on my blueprint. And in Photoshop, I can't see anything unless it's on the parameters of the canvas. So once I've set this to be the right size, this is where it gets confusing to students. You need to verify that you have it, that you have a sketch that's filling the whole canvas, that has what you want at 300 or 350 pixels per inch at something bigger than 8 by 10. So nothing should be lower than 8 by 10. Now I go to image. I'm going to click actually on my background, and I'm going to go to image canvas size. This is underneath image size. This grows pixels around my image. And I'm going to change this in inches to being 40 inches wide by 30 inches tall. That's because my landscape is wider than it is tall. If your landscape is portrait format, taller than it is wide, you're gonna do 30 by 40 instead of 40 by 30. This is a measurement I want you to know. For communications professionals, 30 by 40 inches is the largest printable size on a professional offset 4-color lithography press. The way most things are reproduced. Textbooks, posters, everything, right? Album covers, everything. So you need to know that's the large sheet. That's called a one sheet. A lot of publications are just printed on a one sheet and then folded into their final form. And for the extension color, to help my eyes a little bit, this is like creating a desk where I can cut up my pixels. I don't want bright white. I want middle gray. And then I say OK. And then I can do Command 0 to center it. And now I have my composition, my plan, and I have a gray desk space around it. Does that make sense? And it's at the right pixels. So now it's 40 by 30 inches by 350, but I know because of my guides that this gives me the size I want at the end. And when I'm done cutting it all up and moving it all into here, I will crop it back down to my desired composition. Just like sketching in the middle of your page and not filling the page, this also gives me the opportunity with my reference to make it taller or make it wider if I like what the reference is doing when I do that, right? So I'm not limited to a locked aspect ratio. But I know as long as I fill this space, I'll have big enough resolution. So now I've got my plan. I can reference my sketch. And so I'm going to bring in the background stuff first. We're going to start stacking it. And I'm just going to bring it around. So I'm going to look at, I got a lot of things open, my references. And I have them marked. And it was the green ones that I used in this composition. So I'm going to bring this one in. And I'm going to bring it on top of my sketch and in the corner. And it comes in at its native resolution. It's plenty big enough, right? So I don't need to worry about that. What's in front of that? Yeah.
When you say it's big enough, you mean because it's coming outside of those lines? That grade that you made?
So basically, when you bring it in, it's showing you its native resolution, right? It's showing you the pixels of the thing you downloaded. So because this sky is already bigger than my sketch, and I want to use it for the sky, I know I'm not going to have to grow those pixels to fill up space it's not already filling. Shrinking is always fine, right? Reducing the number of pixels, but when you have to have the computer invent pixels, it softens them, it lessens the quality. Which is less of a big deal in the background than in the foreground, but still it's always nice to have big enough reference. I look at this, what's in front of what's basically this? It's the cliff. I find the cliff. Let's see. Should be green. Huh. Oh, here it is. Yes. Okay. This is why sketching helps you become familiar with your reference. So I bring that in. That is huge, right? And because they come in as smart objects, as soon as they come in, because you're dragging and dropping them, you can transform them and kind of shrink them. I know I don't need that cliff to be that big. And you're keeping them as smart objects, right? So there's no danger to that. Because until they're rasterized, they're still remembering that really high resolution native pixel resolution the original file has. Okay, next, after the cliff, I had the little dental thing. This guy. So it comes in, it's a little bit bigger than I need. I'm going to shrink it down. And I'm just tearing pages out of the magazine to cut out later, right? And getting a sense of how they stack. Now I have my middle ground boulders. Lots of kind of organization here. And I'm going to start stacking. Come on. Stacking that. Oh, I know why. Because I have to hit return. You have to place them. But they're still smart objects. They haven't been rasterized yet. You don't have to make sure they're the right size until they're rasterized. Now those boulders, because I saved that last class and I saved it not as the highest resolution, but as the second highest, you can see how that's still big enough for, it's almost exactly the right size for what I want. But I might do this. I might right click and flip them horizontally. All right, hit return. Now what goes into the foreground? I have the shark's teeth. I have the mist. The mist is still middle ground. That's going to be really important to kind of tie everything together. Bring that in. And really that should go underneath the boulders. And I'm going to hit Command T. Remember, as long as it's a smart object, shrink it down. This is going to go end to end in the middle range, so about like that. I'm going to push it off to the corner, hit return. And then we have the shark's teeth that go on top of that. I'll probably play with those there as a foreground element. And then was there anything else? That's more than 5 already. The foreground skull. So what was the foreground skull? I believe it was this one. And that's pretty tiny. So that might be just a little thing in the foreground. But I don't want to grow it that much, right? And I might bring in this element too, because I really like it as a foreground element to put in. Okay. Now is a good time to save my work. So I'm going to say File, Save As, because I have my sketch. I've made it the right resolution. I've given myself workspace, 30 by 40 inches. And I've brought in some major references, right? So then I'm going to go to File, Save As. And I'm going to use my name. So Karl, Assignment 1. And this is going to be a Skeletor Fantasy Landscape. I'm going to save it to the desktop as a Photoshop format. And I'm going to check the desktop to make sure it's there. And then I'm going to mark that green. So now I have a working format that I can back up on my SD card. I can work on Photopea at home. I can have everything now in one place. So now we're going to learn the compositing techniques. And they're pretty similar to what we did with the black line art, but you have to be a little bit more organized. So we're going to do what's called a rough placement first. So just like if you were collaging, this is I have my drawing for my intentions, and then I've now torn out all my magazine pages. The next step is to do a rough cutout of the things I want to use. So for instance, for the shark teeth, which are here, my rough cutout, I'm going to use my lasso tool. And I know I want the top edge of these, but I don't try to cut out in detail yet those teeth. Instead, I'm just going to do kind of a rough tear out with a lot of overlap by